I just quickly wanted to touch on your role as an investor.
Sure.
Right? And you've made some really good investments. And I wanted to ask you, when you're looking at these companies, now obviously they're not startups. These are companies that have run their course. Sure. And they're looking for capital to scale up. I mean, what do you look for in these businesses? I mean, what are the parameters you look for? Because it would be good for some of our mid-sized technology companies to understand what should they be doing to get to that next stage.
To us, the most important ingredient is the team, is the leadership. That actually surpasses everything else. If we feel that the team is a good team, and when I say the definition of a good team is that the team understands the dynamics, because people come with business plans. In a 4 or 5 year business plan, we know for sure that business plan is going to get disrupted and changed, and there'll be many changes that will come disrupting that. It'll be technological changes, it'll be behavioral changes, it'll be regulatory changes that will happen. So the team has to be able to navigate that, and when you look at it, we look at the team and saying, is this the team that will be able to handle changes? I think the second part of why we invest, when you look at the investment thesis, is the industry. Certainly some industries are better positioned, and there is disruption happening in those industries a little more than in other industries. And so we look and see that is that particular industry ready for disruption, and the elements of disruption, are those starting to be in place for that or not? The other thing, of course, when we look at a business idea is, people, when they look at a business idea, I look at the business idea with two things, or two lenses. And businesses write these things. They write their mission statement, they write their vision statement. And I think everybody has their own definition of what is their mission statement or what their vision statement is, etc. There's one definition out there, and I like that definition. And my adoption of the definition of the mission statement is, what do I do is my mission. So what is it that I do? But the vision statement is, why do I do this thing, right? So to us, in fact, the vision statement, when the entrepreneurial team comes up and says, this is why I do this thing, right? And listening to them, understanding why they do, not what they do, but why they do what they do, is far more important to us. And that really is, again, a very distinguishing factor for us when we look at teams to invest into or business ideas to invest into.
No, that's, I think that makes a lot of sense, Puneet. Just finally, I just wanted to ask you, you've made some interesting investments in organizations, and you sit on the boards, or in most instances, you're the chairman. Are you at liberty to talk about a couple of these companies and the journey that you've seen since you've been involved?
Typically, where we come in is we provide growth capital. These are companies, in many cases, still founder-led. And they have come to a point, and they're largely in the software space. So those are a few common themes around our investment as well. And we find that these founders who have now, through their dint of their entrepreneurial nature, taken these businesses to 50 or 100 million, suddenly find themselves struggling a little bit. And what we call, the chasm or the valley of death, they're finding it hard to cross over. So that's where we come in. And we, by the way, in all our businesses, we went through very similar experiences ourselves. We hit that 50, 100 million mark, and then to get over that mark was a little bit of a struggle. Yeah. So that's really what our investment thesis is around. We recognize the fact that entrepreneurs can build a business, but the very nature of the entrepreneur, the very entrepreneurial nature of this thing, is now sometimes an impediment in institution building on their part. And so how does a smart entrepreneur, how does he or she then pivot from being this very enterprising business owner to now an institutional practice-driven business owner? Because you need that for scale. And so that's really where we come in, and we find that many times entrepreneurs are able to switch and make the change. They need some mentorship, they need coaching, they need guidance, they need proof points of understanding. It was hard for them to give up a formula that worked very well and successfully for them in the past. But if we're able to show to them that this is mandatory and necessary, then they make the change. And sometimes, entrepreneurs find it very, very hard to change, or they don't want to change because they love that part, the early part of the spectrum. And so they are happy to, at that point in time, get professional management to come to business. And they think of them more as a shareholder rather than an operating person.
That's absolutely right. What I wanted to close on, that chasm of getting from that $50-100 million, the biggest hurdle, and this is whether you're a startup or even I see that even in large businesses where you're trying to transform, and we talked about innovation cells, to scale from that startup phase to the next level and institutionalize, that's the biggest struggle that most companies go through. If there were like 3 things that companies and founders need to imbibe, what would those be?
Yeah, I think the execution rigor is a very important, and being able to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
I think the second part is delegation. When you're young, you're tempted to try and do everything yourself. You're frustrated by the pace that things are not happening, and therefore you roll up your sleeves and say, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But there is, for long-term sustainability, you have to build a good delegation model, and you have to actually train the next level of management to be able to take those decisions that you think that you're compelled to take. So that's the second part of it. And I think the third part of it is that some level of fiscal discipline has to come into the organization. Not to say that the young organizations, they're in fact struggling. They are probably more frugal and all that. But fiscal discipline is different than frugality. It's being able to forecast, it's being able to drive towards a plan, it's being able to be consistent towards that plan. And I just use financial measure as one measure of it because it's easily measurable. But those aspects of the business is something that I think you have to pay attention to in your transformation from being a young entrepreneurial business to a more institutional.
No, that was very useful for us. I'm pretty sure this is not going to be the last conversation we're going to have for our users. I'm sure we'll find other opportunities. We've got other platforms to engage. I think you've clearly always demonstrated an ability to share some very strong insights, and your ability to coach is very obvious. For the benefit of Ecosystem's users, I'm talking to Puneet Pushkarna. Puneet runs a private equity fund. Puneet is on the board of TIE, on the board of one of the premier management institutes in the world. I could rattle on and on, but I think Puneet, more than anything else, Puneet brings warmth to our environment. And if you haven't met him, there are ways to reach out to him. And if he's speaking at an event, you must go and listen to him. And I just want to thank you again, Puneet. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Real pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.